The purpose of meditation is not stress reduction. The purpose of meditation is spiritual growth. It's to know ourselves, to know who and what we truly are. And this is something that I never really considered until I think early this year when I was watching a video on Irene Lyon's channel. If you're not familiar with Irene, she is a nervous system expert, has really amazing content and teachings and programs. I'll link to her video below. I am not connected or affiliated with her anyways. I really just love her work and have benefited tremendously from her work. And in one of her videos, she talked about this, right? So that in the West specifically, we use meditation often to reduce stress. But really, its original design, its original purpose was for spiritual growth. And when I took the time to consider this, it really hit home because, and especially because I trained as a yoga teacher at this point about 11 years ago, right? So, and when I thought back to those 6 months of training, when I thought back to the meditations that we were doing, the texts that we were reading, the focus really was never about stress. It was always about us growing and evolving spiritually. So when she brought that up, I had to really think back and then realize she's absolutely right. And the other thing that really hit me was that even with the formal training that I've had, even with all of the other things that I have read and studied outside of that training, I also fell into that trap of just saying on this channel or in my personal life, just saying to people, yeah, you should meditate because it's going to help you reduce stress. But I actually know that I know better, but it was just so shocking to see how easy it is to fall into that type of framing for meditation. And so I wanted to share that with you in this video because I know that meditation can be a challenge for a lot of people. I've certainly been there, especially, and even with more than a decade of regular meditation, of different types of meditation, it still can be quite challenging. And for a lot of people, they do go into it saying, yeah, I'm going to do, 10, 15 minutes of meditation every day. And then they realize they're not actually feeling as great, right? Maybe they actually feel worse. You might be feeling more frustration. You might even feel a little bit more anxious. There's always this frustration that comes up because the mind, the thoughts can seem louder. And that is something that's not necessarily talked about because meditation, again, is presented as a very rosy thing that's going to make your life that much better. And the honest truth is it takes practice. It takes training. You're training your mind, your body, and your mind and body are really one because your mind is just sort of that, it's just that collection of thoughts and programs and just things that just run on automatic, and all of that lives in your system, right? Like it's not really a brain function. It's so much just, it's in you. It's automatic to that point. It's in your being. So if you're somebody who has tried to meditate, you're struggling, one thing I just want you to keep in mind is what, Irene mentioned in her video, this idea that we're taking a tool, but not necessarily using it in the right way. And this matters a lot because going into a meditation, our intention and our expectation makes a difference. And if you're just going into it maybe expecting that it will relieve you of your day-to-day stress, and then it doesn't do that, right? That creates another level of stress in itself. Whereas if you go into it knowing this is me going to face myself, even just knowing that ahead of time, again, the framing that you put around it changes your expectation, which means when you do sit down and maybe it feels uncomfortable, you may not necessarily you may be more likely to stick through it because you've been prepared for it. So really what I want to do with the rest of this video is to give you some things to consider, right? If you're somebody who really maybe feels a need to bring more presence, more mindfulness in your life, but meditation just doesn't call to you, or you've tried it and it's just too much, right? And there are other ways, from my experience, that I've seen that we can still get into that state. We can still get in, or closer to it, let's say. We can still do it and do it with our eyes open. And I actually think that learning to get into more of a present and mindful state with our eyes open is ultimately the goal, because you live most of your day, most of your life with your eyes open. So there's really not much benefit to getting good at being present only when your eyes are closed, because you don't spend that much of your conscious time of your day. The conscious part of your day, most of it is spent with your eyes open. When you're sleeping, your eyes are closed, but that's a different brain state. So here are some of the things that I think can be helpful for anybody who is struggling but wants to bring more presence into their life. These are things that I've done and still do, in addition to sitting formally and meditating and all that. So the main thing is you want to still use your body as a sort of a channel, a pathway to presence, because everything that is happening around you, your body is experiencing 100% of the time without exception. And so that presence and attention that we try to do with our eyes closed, we can do that at a very simple level through our 5 senses. You know, your sense of sight, of smell, of touch, all of those senses. When you learn to just be with them with your eyes open, they can actually create a really amazing sense of relaxation in your body that can also be incredibly helpful for bringing down stress and for just making you feel more whole, right, more present. So simple example, if you're going out for a walk, a simple example would be taking the time to look at what's around, at taking in either the colors of what's around or the shapes of what's around, right? Are you maybe you're seeing a tree that's kind of more of a full, almost like a kind of like an afro, right? Some trees literally look like a full afro. So are you taking in that kind of shape? Are you taking in maybe more a pine tree type of shape? Are there buildings? What are their shapes? What are the curves, right? Are there like columns around the buildings? Are those columns are they like kind of more circular structures, or are they more square structures? That's one way to do it, just with your sense of sight. Another example would be like with touch, right? So again, there are different ways. When you're taking a shower, that's like one of the best times, because there's a lot going on in that moment. Like there is how the water feels as it lands on your body, right? There is how, if you're using a loofah or you're just using your hands, but as you're cleaning your body, you can connect to that sensation even more. Because the idea is, don't just go through your shower and just make it this very mechanical process, because that just turns it into another to do. Whereas if you can even take a few extra seconds with everything that you're doing to feel how your hands feel against your skin, right? To feel how the soap might feel, or feel how your scrub might feel, but really feel into it. Slow down a little bit with the motion. That creates more presence. And the body is so amazing in that way, that when you truly come back to it, like you'll get some signal. The signal is specific to the person, and so I'm not going to try to influence your experience in terms of what you should look at, but I can 100% guarantee you that you will get some signal, either that very first time you do it or via the repetition. At some point, you will suddenly realize that you're sensing your own body and your own experience somehow differently, that you're more connected. And that's really what, the meditative practice, or even like a mindfulness practice, they help us to get more connected to ourselves, to all of us, all the different aspects of us, whether it's the subtle aspects or the more so-called gross physical aspects, connecting to it better and getting good at it. So shower, it's a great place. Step out of the shower, lotion, oil. Again, anytime you're touching your body with presence versus just touching it with, I don't know what the word is, but versus just touching it in a sort of very like procedural way. There's a difference in how your own body experiences it. So that would be your sense of touch. Fabrics, right? Different types of fabrics. If you're wearing a sweater, if you're wearing a scarf, if you've got a nice flowy summer dress, all of those different fabrics have different feels to it. The fabric on your chair. So if you take the time to really pay attention to how those different things feel when your fingertips land on them, when the palm of your hand land on them, because even sensation here and sensation here will change also based on the surface. And you start tuning into those types of things just for a few seconds even. Can feel so amazing. Cooking, that's one of my other favorite ways to sort of, again, get into a little bit more of a mindful and meditative state while doing normal things in my day. So cooking is great for so many different things. Touch, right? I make bread and I love that feeling when you start kneading the dough and you're stretching it and you're playing with it. If you are cooking with something like okra, which I do, it's different. It's a slimy vegetable. It has a different feel on your hands. Even touching meat when you're cooking, that's going to feel different, right? So the sense of touch also, you can really experience it in lots of different ways when you start to tune in. And the other thing would be something like chopping, let's say parsley. That plays on smell, because you can, when you buy fresh parsley, you can smell it, but it's not until that knife cuts through it, then you get a whiff of the parsley. And if you're somebody who likes to cook, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I can't even put this into words, but it's like you feel, like a natural fragrance when it hits you. It's like, it's literally, to me, it's life force. It's the plant's life force in scent form that's hitting my system. And there's just something that just brings you present and into the moment very quickly with something so basic, right? So cooking has a lot of different opportunities. Obviously, once you're done cooking and then you're eating the food, that's another moment to use that sense of taste to be present. And it's not just tasting flavors, it's also, again, tasting like textures, right? So going back to something unusual textures that we don't necessarily maybe experience every day, things like okra that's slimy, chia seeds, and I bring those up because those are, again, more, those are textures that some people don't necessarily enjoy. So, but if you can even learn to play with those, or if just, it's the texture of, I don't know, that's why you're just eating corn, or your bread, right? Like, there's always these little nuances to them. And so as you eat and chew your food, that's just another time to do it. And again, one thing I will say is, especially with eating, as much as possible, do it away from a screen, because a screen brings another element into the picture that can distract you. And we're very, 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 very easily distracted by the visual. Like, the moment something is in front of our eyes, like, a lot of the other senses just disappear and we focus on that. So do it away from the screen and be present with it. So I think, so touching, tasting, smelling, we've talked about, all of that. So, yeah, play with your senses. Use them as a way to just be more present, right? And then I think the last one I haven't touched on would be hearing. So this is one you can play with when you're out walking very easily. If you're in a place that has more nature sounds, whether it's birds or even it's just the sound of a cat somewhere, like tuning into the sounds can be just an interesting way to be like, okay, this is, my feet are touching the ground in this moment. And at the same time, I also hear even maybe a car honking. And that's what's happening in this moment, right? So with trying to trying to meditate or be present, you're just wanting to experience what's here, what's here now, and your senses are the gateway to that. So at some point, you might even be able to enjoy the sound of a car that's honking. Obviously, if you're in a super, super busy area, it might actually be frustrating. But I am in an area that has a nice balance where there are cars coming through, but it's not so out of control where I don't have quiet moments and I've got trees and I've got other things around me. So if you can find a space like that, then tune in. If you're in your apartment, right, and you just want to even just tune into the sounds around you, like if you have a fan running, that's like a simple thing. And this might seem to you like so so basic, but it's really just sitting down and just letting your body rest with your eyes open. Let your body, be mindful with your eyes open, because then you realize that you don't only have to sit down, cross-legged and om and all that to experience a certain amount of just peace and relaxation and, dare I say, bliss from time to time. It doesn't have to be very, very formal. You can do it in these small ways, and all aspects of you will start reflecting that practice to you, right? Like certainly your health, in whatever way, some signs always come through our bodies. You just can't help it. Everything we experience is through this. There is no separation. So we might as well get good at leaning into it. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If any of this resonated with you, if you are somebody who, whatever practices that you have for yourself, whatever tools you have for yourself to just do this same type of everyday mindfulness, everyday presence. If you struggle with meditation and you found other ways of infusing it into your life, go ahead and share in the comments, because I'm sure it will benefit somebody else who's just looking for ideas or looking for inspiration. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.